Welcome to the version 1.2 update of my stylized anime shader. For this release, the main focus was on adding stylized anisotropic reflections and completely removing the dithering noise from the lighting smoothing. I've also included a few other adjustments along the way, which we'll cover shortly. But first, let's dive into the anisotropic reflections. Anisotropic reflections have now been integrated into both the lit and unlit versions of the cell shader layer and cell shader standard materials. My goal was to move away from static paintovers. I wanted dynamic hair reflections that react to the camera and light, creating a much more responsive material. While I built this with hair in mind, the system is versatile enough for many surfaces. Rather than a standalone hair shader, I've integrated these settings directly into the existing master materials. In the standard material, you'll find the new Anisotropy section located near the bottom of the parameter list. Since this system connects to the existing setup, it shares the established coloring methods. If no specific coloring options are active, it defaults to color parameter. If you use a texture, you could get creative with rainbow-style reflections, or simply use your base color texture to tint the highlight. In this example, I'm using RGB color masking. The channels that are activated in the main color section will automatically appear at the bottom of the Anisotropy tab. You can toggle the effect on or off for each activated color channels, giving you precise control over which parts of your model receive the reflection. A texture can be used for each of those color channels if you need, by using the tileable option for the desired channel. The reflection color blends as an addition on top of the base color below, which is standard for a reflection. However, while recording this section, I realized that it would be useful to have more artistic control over that behavior. So, I've added a new toggle switch. By flipping it, you can change the blending mode between addition and no blending, allowing you to just stamp down the exact direct color you want without it multiplying or adding to the underlying layers. For this character, the hair is mapped to an area where there are no paint data in my mask, which is defined as the base in this shader. So I activate Anisotropy for the base and set my desired color. I've included a parameter to darken that reflection color based on the underlying colors. This is perfect for hiding highlights in darker areas like hair roots, preventing the reflection from overpowering deep tones. To be clear, this does not use Unreal Engine 5's native reflections. This is a custom, stylized implementation driven procedurally by textures. By default, the shader applies a procedural noise pattern, which you can tile as you want in both axes, projected on UVs. If your hair strands share a consistent UV direction, this works quite well for a quick setup. While procedural noise is a great start, getting a highlight to better follow complex hair flow usually requires a custom map. Let's look at that workflow. In my setup, instead of the noise texture, I've placed a hand-painted grayscale map in the red channel of my packed texture. Because my painted strokes follows the specific curve of the hair strands, the result will be much more natural. By default, reflections can appear uniformly strong across the specular ring, which can make the hair look a bit flat. To fix this, you can enable an aniso mask, which hides the reflection in areas where the mask is black. I've placed this mask in the blue channel of my packed texture. I specifically painted the underside of the hair and deep cavities to kill the reflection in those spots. This adds volume to the model, as highlights now only appear on the peaks of the hair strands. Next is the highlight offset parameter, which shifts the position of the highlight along the direction of the anisotropy. Think of this reflection as a specular ring that moves based on the camera, the directional light and tangents. The offset lets you slide the position of that ring on the mesh. We also have highlight start and highlight end. These control the high and low thresholds, allowing you to widen or narrow the specular band. I've included a contrast slider for the pattern texture as well. This lets you blend hair strands together for a softer look or keep them sharp and individual. A reflection alone didn't feel like enough, so I've fully integrated this system into the shader's actual lighting calculation. By adjusting lighting influence, the anisotropic pattern directly affects how light hits the surface. This creates a fibrous look, and you can control the perceived length of these fibers by tweaking this value. The lighting opacity parameter ensures the pattern blends smoothly into the lighting, avoiding a pasted-on look. This effect is also influenced by the lighting edge blurring, which recently got an update. This provides the final polish that makes the stylized effect much more believable. As we rotate the light and move the camera, you can see how both the highlight and the fibrous lighting react dynamically. For many cases, the setup we've done so far is enough, but we can go even deeper to solve specific technical hurdles. To make the highlights move accurately across the mesh, the calculation uses the mesh's built-in tangents by default. It is important not to confuse these with normals. While normals tell the light which way the surface is facing, tangents define the flow across that surface. Think of it like a field of fur or a stream of water. The normals point straight out from the surface, but the tangents point in the direction the fur is groomed or the water is flowing. This flow is what the anisotropic highlight follows. By default, it uses the mesh's tangent vectors, which are aligned with your UV layout, but you can also switch to a custom tangent if you need more control. However, working with default tangents can be tricky depending on how your mesh is built. For example, if your mesh is symmetrical, default tangents often create a deformed reflection at the center seam. To solve this, ensure you export tangents from your modeling tool. You may need to triangulate your mesh for this to re-import the tangents correctly into Unreal. Another common issue with symmetrical meshes is flipped or overlapping UVs. Since Unreal's tangents depend on UV direction, mirrored UVs often create a visible seam right down the middle. If redoing the model isn't an option, I've implemented two solutions. The first is procedural tangents, which ignores mesh tangents in favor of a flat, consistent value. Once activated, the seams should disappear. You'll gain access to a tangent orientation color parameter. Only red and green values can change the orientation axis. The second option allows you to use custom tangents on a secondary UV set that isn't overlapped or flipped. This unlocks a texture slot for what looks like a normal map, which act like the procedural tangent and remove the seams. This map is exposed because it allows us to paint a custom direction for the tangents if desired, literally directing the reflection where it should go. The trade-off for this method is that Unreal typically only uses UV0 for tangents. To bypass this, the effect becomes a screen space calculation, which can sometimes look slightly squarish. It is something to keep in mind. If your mesh doesn't have mirrored UVs on the parts you plan to use the effect, you can take full advantage of custom flow map painting on UV0 without those artifacts. Just ensure the UV option is unchecked to use the correct calculation. I'll likely make a separate, shorter video on how to paint a flow map, but for now, let's see what it actually does in the shader. In this example, as I adjust the highlight offset, you can see the reflection follow the surface. The flow map gives us the power to tell that reflection the path to take. If I apply a custom flow map where I've painted the custom directions, the highlights now follow my brush strokes perfectly. You can also flip the direction if it looks reversed. On this character, the hair generally flows in a single direction, so the mesh's built-in tangents were sufficient. In this specific case, I don't need to enable the custom settings. However, if your character has hair or fur flowing in more complex, varied directions, this feature will be helpful. It gives you the control needed to guide the anisotropic flow manually, preventing the highlights from drifting in an undesired direction across your mesh. The layered version of the shader features all the same parameters, but they are split up slightly differently to take full advantage of the layering system. Properties controlling the core of the anisotropy are located in the layer section, while anything controlling the color is found in the detail section. The advantage of this setup is interesting. As with any layer, you can seamlessly blend distinct material types, for example, transitioning smoothly between metal and fur. Small tip, if you're planning that kind of transition, adding some fiber patterns into your layer mask will create a much more natural-looking blend between the two surfaces. Another way to use the layers is by stacking multiple types of anisotropy settings. Let's say you want to dynamically change the length or type of fur. For example, I can place the exact same fur texture into different layers and then use a gradient mask to isolate where the new properties should apply. Even if both layers start with the same settings, you can tweak the lighting influence on a specific layer to create a distinct variation in fur length across the model. While you can adjust almost any parameter here, I thought the lighting influence was worth emphasizing. If you're working with complex fur or hair that requires varied lengths and textures, the layered version of the shader is a good option. If you use a custom anisotropic pattern or a mask to hide the effect, the compression settings are similar to the other textures used in this shader. If your texture only contains a single channel, use either alpha or grayscale compression. If the texture is packed with other channels like mine, import as mask no sRGB, BC7 or vector displacement map compression. In all cases, make sure that sRGB is disabled. As for the flow map, it is recommended to import the texture as a 16-bit PNG or EXR, since the grayscale values require higher precision. The recommended compression setting is usually vector displacement map. But if BC7 or masks no sRGB gives good results in your project, those can also work well. Next, let's talk about the lighting blur. A major goal for this update was completely removing the noise that appeared when smoothing out the lighting transitions. Previously, the core light calculation was strictly binary, either a 1 or a 0. Creating a smooth blend between those two states required dithering, which was the source of that visible noise. I have rewritten that calculation. The dithering noise is gone, and the result is a perfectly clean, smooth gradient. While rewriting this, I also added more granular controls. Previously, a single parameter controlled the blur for the light, shadow, and shadow band all at once. Now, these can be adjusted independently. For example, you can apply a strong blur specifically to the shadow band to create a soft gradation across the surface, while keeping the other lighting edges sharp. In the details section, the toggle switch for the blur settings has been updated. Instead of just a simple on-off toggle, it now switches between using your specific layer settings or falling back on your global settings. One technical note. The minimum value for these settings is set to 0.001. I found that a true value of 0 could cause visual glitches in certain lighting scenarios, so I've capped it slightly to ensure stability. Finally, because the math behind the smoothing has changed, your previous blur settings may look different on your existing models. While you'll need to do a quick readjustment, the final result will be much cleaner and more stable. Now, let's go over some smaller adjustments and bug fixes included in this update. For opaque materials, I previously used a dithering noise by default to simulate a cheap transparency or to soften the edges for opacity masks. I've rewired this a little bit so that dithering is now optional. Also, you can choose to override the material properties to use actual translucency driven by the same mask, which it was not possible in the previous version. Keep in mind that while real translucency looks smoother, it won't cast shadows. If you need shadows for these parts, I still recommend using a dedicated shadow mesh, as I mentioned in the previous update. This is particularly useful if you make eyebrows or other small floating details where a soft edge is more important than a physical shadow. Speaking of opacity, I fixed a wiring error in the standard lit material where the opacity channel was completely disconnected, causing masking to fail. This is now fully functional. Next, I addressed an issue with shadow coloring. Previously, shadow colors didn't react correctly to gradient coloring. For example, if the hair color became darker at the roots, the shadow color would stay unnaturally bright because it is not blended with the color below. I've added an option to link these colors, so your shadows now respect the gradient's brightness for a more cohesive look. I've updated the gradient color system. Previously, dynamic gradients were only available via the procedural method, which can be difficult to adjust if your model is imported in a specific pose. You can now switch to a custom gradient texture. This gives you the same level of control as the procedural system, but with the pinpoint precision of a hand-painted map. I've also addressed a visual artifact in the gradient system. Whether you were using procedural or texture-based gradients, there was often a harsh, visible line in the center. I've now isolated the midtones and added a subtle noise effect specifically to that middle range. This breaks up the transition and eliminates that sharp line for a much smoother look. Additionally, I found that the subsurface masking inputs weren't accepting alpha channels correctly. This has been fixed, so you can now use your alpha maps for SSS masking without issues. That concludes the major changes for version 1.2. Because I've revamped so much of the underlying data, I highly recommend a clean update of your resource folder. While not every file has changed, replacing the entire folder is the safest way to ensure everything works correctly. If you want to see the demo models and examples using these new materials, you can also update the art and levels folders. However, please be careful. If you've made any custom changes to the files inside those folders, do not overwrite them or you will lose your work. Always perform a full backup of your project before updating. Looking ahead, I am planning to reorganize the parameter menus in the material instances, with a specific focus on the color section, as I think the current layout can be a bit confusing to use. It's a more tedious process than it looks, but my goal is to make the workflow as clear and intuitive as possible. As a reminder, I have a Discord server for any support you might need with this shader or my other technical tools. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing what you create with this new update.